Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. There are major developments taking place in Missouri, and especially in the Kansas City metro area, which is where Independence is at. I noticed it after I moved here last year. I would see things with my own eyes. There would be news articles that would come out talking about big changes taking place in this area. And of course, with me running this channel and thinking about the second coming, I do tend to think that it has to do with the second coming and the eventual movement of church headquarters from Salt Lake to Independence at some point in the future. I don't know what that's going to look like. But what I do know is that there are a lot of people that are moving here, a lot of members of the church. I myself moved here because it's too expensive to live out west. We initially moved to Kansas. We had a homestead. We lived south of Wichita. And I thought that that was going to be our forever home. But I started this channel. We needed a bigger house, and it was time just to move back to the city because I didn't have time for homesteading. And I figured, well, instead of moving to Wichita, why don't we move up to the Kansas City area? We found a nice place to rent in Independence. It was an amazing house, and then the owners wanted to sell it, and so we decided to purchase a home in Independence. But in this time that I've been here, it has just been astounding to see the number of people that are moving here, number one. But number two, these big changes that I want to talk about. So, for example, I'm going to cover this more in depth in just a minute, but just within the last couple weeks, I've seen stories like this. This is Fox 4. Missouri Department of Transportation. Work with us. Historic construction season ahead. A record-breaking year of construction is underway across Missouri roadways. And I have definitely seen that and experienced it. I'm glad that it's happening, but obviously this is going to make it better for people coming to Missouri, people that live here and people coming to Missouri. More on that in just a minute. I just saw this today. This is from KCTV5. Coined Plaza of the Northland, Kansas City backs development near I-435 in Northeast Shoal Creek Parkway. But the thing about it is, guess what? What's now unused 400 acres in Northland, owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that's it right there. We had already covered stories, and we're going to do it again, about church-owned land in the southern part of Jackson County in Lee's Summit. But there's this too. Northland, owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, could soon be turned into a major new development, being dubbed by some as the Plaza of the Northland, with homes, shops, restaurants, and entertainment. And guess where that's located? Right just north of the Kansas City, Missouri Temple. This is the temple right here. Here's I-435 right here to the east of it. And just directly north, you have this big piece of land that is currently farmland, I guess. And it looks like they're going to be developing this. There's a lot to cover in this video. It's not just that. It's thing after thing after thing after thing. Something is happening with Missouri. Something is happening with the Kansas City area. Okay, so before we go into all these things, I want to remind you of this quote from Elder Jeremiah Morgan of the 70. He was in the area presidency, and he actually used to be RLDS, which is now Community of Christ, but he left before they became Community of Christ, I believe. But he had served for 5 years in this area, and now he's moved on. And him and his wife, Rebecca McDavitt Morgan, they did a parting video message on social media. You can find this on Church of Jesus Christ KC Facebook page. Okay, Elder Morgan. Dear brothers and sisters, what an amazing 5 years it has been for Rebecca and I as we've gone out, traveled throughout the area, and served. We've seen remarkable growth. Okay, remarkable growth and strength in the church. As we look to that, we wanted to highlight a few of those things, echoing the words of President Nelson, who said, "Do you see the majesty of this moment?" Sister Morgan. President Nelson promised that between now and when Jesus Christ returns again, we would see some of the greatest manifestations of God's power, and we are seeing that here in our area. Let's talk about a few of those. Elder Morgan. Over the last few weeks, 3 new stakes have been created in the Kansas City area. Let's look at that really quick. Two of them are mentioned here in church news. Read about these 11 new, 10 reorganized stakes from Missouri to Mexico. And one of them is the Shoal Creek, Missouri stake, which I think came from, created from the Liberty, Missouri stake. So we got that one. And then, sorry, I went too far. And then we have the Grand River, Missouri stake. And that came from the Far West, Missouri stake. You could call the Grand River, Missouri stake the Adamondeaman stake. It's named after the river that goes through Adamondeaman. So you have that. And then according to, I just pulled up this as a source. This is Julie Densom Edwards' post in this Missouri Independence Mission 1988 to 1991 page. And she's just talking about how there's been so much growth. And she pointed to these 3 new stakes that were created: Grand River, Far West, and Overland Park, Kansas. So obviously that's on the Kansas side, but still in the Kansas City metro area. That one was created from the Olathe, Kansas stake. Okay, back to Elder Morgan. And sorry, it's going to cut off a little bit where I have, well, I can move this. I'll move me up here. Okay. So over the past few weeks, 3 new stakes have been created in the Kansas City area. In addition to that, 8 new stake presidencies have been called just within the last few months. That's remarkable growth. Sister Morgan. Temple work and temple attendance have also continued to grow. Missionary work and missionary service have also increased substantially. Elder Morgan. The church identifies indicators of conversion and church growth. There are 9 of them. In the last 5 years, every single one of those indicators have increased in this area. Let me give you a few examples of those dramatic changes. Those that have been to the temple and have been endowed and have a current temple recommend has increased from 63% to 68%, a 5% increase representing more than 600 members returning to the temple. That is remarkable. In addition, young men in priesthood office appropriate for their age has increased from 64% to 75%, an 11% increase. And finally, those who have gone to the temple as adults or youth to perform ordinances for their ancestors has increased from 14 to 24%, almost a quarter of members. That is a remarkable change over the last 5 years. Sister Morgan, this is spiritual momentum. God is performing miracles right here, right now. We're going to be talking about that. There really is momentum in this area, and miracles are taking place. I'm going to show you everything that I know of. There might be more things I didn't catch for this video, but just you're probably going to be surprised. Okay, Elder Morgan, you and I can be part of that same spiritual momentum. This is the great work of the kingdom here in this area, and we can all be part of it. I testify to you, as President Nelson said, the best is yet to come. Now pay attention to this part. And so it is for each of us, and for this area in particular. Okay. So let's get into the things that have been taking place. So we just talked about these 3 new stakes, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more in the near future. I think about my own stake, and the 2 wards that I've been in so far are bursting at the seams. Like when you go to Sacrament, it is full. There's lots of families, there's lots of youth. I'm fully expecting that there's going to be new wards announced and possibly new stakes created. Maybe a new stake formed out of the stake that I'm in right now. I think I mentioned this on the channel before, but 2 weeks ago in Sacrament, there were like 3 and I think 4 new families that had moved into the ward, and they were actually there. You know how sometimes records are moved and the person isn't actually there to stand up, but they were there. And I've heard stories from other wards in different areas around this area, around, you know, like far west and in here. Um, it really seems like there's a lot of people moving in this area. Okay, let's move on. We also have this: the Church of Jesus Christ announces the addition of 55 new missions in 2026. This is going to take effect July 1st of this year. And one of those is going to be the Missouri Kansas City mission. This is the Liberty Stake website. They talked about this. Um, the Missouri Independence Mission will be splitting this July to form a new mission, the Missouri Kansas City Missouri mission, or what? The Missouri Kansas City mission. The two missions will follow stake lines and go as follows. And then it has a breakdown. The Independence mission will include Far West, Grand River, Independence, Liberty, Platte, Shoal Creek, those stakes. And then the Missouri Kansas City mission will include Lenexa, Kansas City, Olathe, Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas, and Warrensburg, Missouri. Okay, so that's exciting. And then let's get back to this. So, historic construction, a record-breaking year of construction is underway across Missouri roadways. There was this video posted by Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe. And then I want to read from this. This is 41 KSHB, Kansas City. Missouri Department of Transportation prepares for quote unquote historic summer construction season. Drivers in Missouri will notice road construction this summer. Between now and October, the Missouri Department of Transportation plans to complete quote unquote historic amount of construction. During an event Monday in Grain Valley to recognize National Work Zone Awareness Week, MoDOT Director Ed Hassinger explained there will be 1,000 active work zones in the state every day this summer. Quote, I'd say 4 years ago, it might have been half of that, Hassinger said. The director said funding from a gas tax Missouri increased incrementally from 2021 to 2025 is helping pay for the projects. The department is also catching up on work delayed during the COVID-19 pandemic and is in a years-long project to expand 200 miles of Interstate 70 from 2 to 3 lanes. I just want to point out, I-70, that's the freeway that goes through Independence. Let me turn on, let's go to view. And then turn on that so we can see roads. Okay, so I-70 is right here. It goes through Independence. This is the Temple lot right here, this yellow place marker. From I-70 up to there, it's probably just like maybe like a 10-minute drive or something like that. But the interesting thing is that I-70 goes all the way west and it stops in Utah, right over here where it meets up with I-15. It's not necessarily the best way. Like if you're in Salt Lake and Provo, it's probably not the best way to get to Missouri. When I went to Utah in September, we drove up this way through we went through Nebraska and Wyoming and such, but it is one way. But I-70 goes from Utah and then it comes all the way over here and goes through Independence. And they're going to be adding another lane and improving this highway. So I find that really interesting. Oops. Okay, here we go. So expanding from 2 to 3 lanes means more people can drive on it, less traffic. Dalton White spends a lot of time on I-70. He looks forward to the end of 2030 when the expansion project should be complete. So there's a date for this project maybe to think about. Uh, Quote, I'd be curious what the third lane is going to add. What are the perks of it? White asked. What it's going to do is make the road more reliable so you can count on traversing I-70 without delay. It's going to make it safer, Hassinger said. Okay. And then we got this, the Plaza of Northland. So again, if we go up here, it's this kind of like triangular piece of land just directly north of the Kansas City, Missouri temple. And I didn't know that all this was owned by the church, but now I know, and it looks like they're doing something with it. We already read this, but they're calling it a major new development. And it's similar to what we already knew before about Lee's Summit and land that's owned by the church down there. This is Kansas City Business Journal. Lee's Summit approves Legacy Ridge Plan with 505 housing units on LDS land. And has a graphic on there. There's another article. This is from the Kansas City Star. And I think this might be a separate development. I was trying to look at the map, but I can't get a bigger picture, and it doesn't mention like street names or anything. So there might be two different developments in Lee's Summit. But if we go back to the map, Lee's Summit is part of Jackson County. So again, up here you have the Temple lot in yellow. Orange is historic downtown Independence. And if you go south, you come to Lee's Summit. And for that first one that we were talking about, it seems like that development is going to go in right here. So the church has 2, possibly 3 major developments that are going to be taking place. One in Jackson County, and then the other one up here near the temple. I guess this would be Clay County over here. At the same time, I don't think that that's typical. It doesn't happen every day. It's happening at the same time as all these other things are taking place. There's more to talk about. Okay, so Lee Summit. I've told you before about what's going on in Independence. They're doing this thing called Imagine Independence Comprehensive Plan 2040. And you can go to this website. I'll put a link for it in the description box below. But it details all the different ways that they want to essentially renovate the city of Independence. And they've already done some of it. If you go to page 4, I like this. There's a quote from, can I zoom in on this? There's a quote from Harry S. Truman. He's from Independence. This is where he returned to after his presidency. He's the one that was president of the United States when World War II ended. He authorized the use of the nuclear bombs in Japan. And he made this really interesting statement about independence. Independence, Missouri is the center of the world. Of course, he's saying that because he's from there, and for him, it's home. Anywhere that you live is the center of the world in one sense. But it's interesting as they're going through these major changes, they include that statement, which is actually very fitting for Independence because it's going to be one of the 2 world headquarters during the millennium. We're going to have the Old Jerusalem in Israel, and then we're going to have the New Jerusalem here in Independence, Jackson County, Missouri. So I've seen some of this with my own eyes. When I moved here last year, they still had the old sidewalks and if I remember right, it was not a one-way road that goes around the courthouse. It was just your typical type of road where you have 2 lanes and traffic both ways. They've redone some of the parking, but overall, it just looks really nice. It's a pleasant place to be. I like going to the public square. You have in the sidewalks, you have some of the historical markers that mark significant sites in our church history. This is where Joseph Smith was first brought after he was arrested at Far West. He came here for an initial hearing, and that site is marked over here. But They always have like these different events going on. Um, I want to go to, I think it's called Polynesian Fest. I'm not sure, but there's a really sizable Polynesian population in Independence, and there's an annual festival that they have. I plan on going to that. But anyway, they're doing this big renovation, beautification of the city of Independence as all this other stuff is going on. Um, okay, and then we have some other news. You have you have the two stadiums that are really close to Independence. I think they're in Raytown. I'm not exactly sure, but okay. So here again is the Temple Lot and historic downtown Independence, and a short distance to the southwest, you have the current stadiums for the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs. In fact, why don't we measure that distance really quick so we can get an idea? We'll just go to the Temple Lot. So it's a distance of about 6 kilometers. And then in miles, it's almost 4 miles away. So it's pretty close. It's pretty close. And what they're doing is they're moving these stadiums, which is a bummer to me. I liked the idea that I live so close to them. We went to a Royals game recently, and I actually got I got one of the baseballs. Um, just a side note, I was at this first time I ever went to a Major League Baseball game, and I was a little bit surprised how many of these baseballs go into the stands. Um, in fact, I was fascinated to find out that I think there's like something like 1,700 fans each year that get injured by baseballs, and it's not just like home run, like when there's a home run and it goes like really far away from the. It's like foul balls and stuff like that. There's a shocking amount of baseballs that go into the audience. Um, but I got one of them and I was really happy because it just helps me feel a little bit more connected to Kansas City. It was kind of a blessing that that happened. But anyway, let's go back to this. So the Kansas City Chiefs are moving across the state line and into Kansas. It's still going to be the Kansas City metro area, but it's going to be on the Kansas side. I'm definitely sad about that. If I was still living near Wichita, I would have been really excited about that. But now I live in Missouri and I've kind of um, changed my frame of mind. I do want to point out that the Kansas City Chiefs in recent years have gone to the Super Bowl multiple times. I think starting in 2020. Yeah, in 2020, they were the Super Bowl champs, and then they went again the next year, but they lost. And then they won in 2023, in 2024, and then they lost in 2025. But this is really Kansas City's time to shine in the Super Bowl, I think. I don't know if they're going to go again. I hope that they do. I did a video about that. Which one was it? The Kansas City versus San Francisco. Um, it's interesting because the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs is a member of the church, Andy Reid. This is essentially the New Jerusalem Chiefs. You can think of it that way. Um, I mean, I'm not taking that too seriously, but it brings more attention to this area, and it kind of like raises it in prominence, and there's a lot of things that are bringing attention to Kansas City. I'm going to show you some more. It's also worth noting that Kansas City went to the first Super Bowl. They lost to the Green Bay Packers, but they were in that first Super Bowl. It's kind of like how the church was here at the very beginning of the church, like the year after the church was organized. The church was already here. Joseph Smith identified the temple site, and the Saints were here basically from. I mean, technically, I think there were some here in 2030, but the main time frame was 2030. Oh my gosh, 1830 won to 1833. Um, but we didn't stay. It's like we lost, just like how the Kansas City Chiefs lost back then. But now is our time to shine, I think, in Kansas City, in Missouri in general. So I kind of think of it like that. Also, interesting to note is that this year, the FIFA World Cup is coming to Kansas City. 6 of the games are going to be held here. And it's the first time that that's happened. I guess they're going to play in what's currently the Chiefs Stadium, Arrowhead Stadium. Um, but just another thing that's bringing more attention to Kansas City. All of this happening at the same time, you guys. Okay. And then, if that wasn't enough, the Royals are going to be getting a new stadium. Again, that's sad to me. They're going to be moving closer to, well, they're going to be basically in downtown Kansas City, but they will be on the Missouri side. It says the stadium would be part of an 85-acre development of Crown Center, a shopping and dining district run by Hallmark Cards, which is headquartered at the center and is partnering with the Royals in the real estate adventure. Between the ballpark and the entertainment district, the project's total bill could run to about $3 billion. Now, here's another thing to think about. As far as the Lord's plans for this area, I don't know. Like, you have this, like, okay, so here are the two stadiums as they are right now. The Royals are going to be over here, around about this area. And then the Chiefs are coming over here to the Kansas side, somewhere around here. So you have these two sports teams that are being moved further away from Independence. I don't know if that's significant or not. Maybe, this area is going to be built up sooner than later. Maybe it's appropriate to have those kind of distractions and things moved away. Although that's not how it is with Salt Lake. You have the Utah Jazz that play not too far away from Temple Square. But who knows what the Lord's plans are for this area. Another thing is that if you have these new stadiums, well, these sports stadiums aren't just used for the teams that play in them. There's different events that take place, right? The Chiefs Stadium is not just for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Royal Stadium is not just for the Royals baseball team. In fact, you remember President Nelson, he spoke at Safeco Field in Seattle, and that was a big event. And it just makes it, when you have new venues that are brand new, it makes for a more comfortable experience. And maybe the church, maybe in the millennium, are going to use these new stadiums for big events. So it may not just be about these sports teams. Okay. So one more time, let's just recap what we got. So we have this new development that was just recently announced just north of the Kansas City, Missouri Temple. In Independence, we have Imagine Independence 2040. Oops, I put 2024. My bad. We have the Chiefs and the Royals that are going to new stadiums that they're going to be further away from Independence. And then down here in Lee Summit, there's one and possibly two new developments that are going to be built on church land that the church owns. All this stuff is taking place at the same time. Meanwhile, you have all this construction all this construction of roadways across Missouri. You have the new Missouri Kansas City mission. You have the 3 new stakes, and then just in general, there's all these people joining the church, and the church is growing according to the 9 metrics that were mentioned by Elder Morgan. Okay, let's continue. So we got the Royals Stadium. The Royals, they won the World Series back in 2015. So not as recent as the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, but that's still relatively recent. That was just, 3 years after the Kansas City, Missouri temple was dedicated, and then the Royals won the World Series. Okay. And then this just came out. This is Newsroom, April 27th. 150 missionaries singing U.S. national anthem at Kansas City Royals game. What's interesting is when I went to go see the Royals game, they were playing the White Sox. I saw missionaries down there in this area. I don't know if they were just like getting like an initial feel for the place or look, or if they were like invited, like, hey, you guys can come to here's a free game. You can come. I don't know what was going on, but I saw missionaries down on the field when I went, but that was before this. So we had good seats too. We were actually probably around this area right here. We had good seats. It was awesome. And then in recent years, this is back in 2024, Elder Gary E. Stevenson throws out first pitch at Royals Red Sox game. So there he is with a Royals player. And then we've had Elder Gong here. This mostly has to do with the Light the World campaign. It's really big here in Kansas City. This is Union Station, which is an amazingly beautiful building and a really fun place to visit. But like I said, okay, so I think one of the reasons why this is so big is because the Kansas City Chiefs have promoted the giving machines. And you remember what I said, that Andy Reid, the head coach, is a member of the church. So I think it has to do with that mostly. And then Elder Gong, he went to a Chiefs game. He was there like at the, I think at the beginning. And then you also had the Bonner family. They're members of the church and they're a musical group. But you had Elder Gong at a Chiefs game. I've been told that they were invited here by like local church leadership. It doesn't matter. The Lord works however he works. He inspires people to do things, including local church leadership. The fact is you have this attention going to Kansas City and attention with these sports teams. And by the way, there's Elder Morgan right there, the one that we were just reading the quote from. This is him. Okay. Here's a video that I took last year because at this point I was now living in Independence and I decided to go to the Giving Machines unveiling. And you have Elder Stevenson at this one. And then this guy right here, this is the Missouri governor. Okay, I'm still learning. It's Mike Kehoe. Mike Kehoe was there for the Giving Machines unveiling. And I pointed out on social media, it's fascinating if you think back to 1833 when the Saints were expelled from Jackson County, and 1838 when the governor of Missouri signed an extermination order. That was Governor Lilburn Boggs. And then fast forward to 2025, that's when this happened. And now you have one of our apostles, along with the Missouri state governor, participating in this unveiling event, which is put on by the church, and throwing things to the crowd. Like they had like little, like little Chiefs footballs. They probably said like Giving Machines or something, or Light the World. But it's amazing how times have changed, right? It's amazing how the church is coming back to Missouri, coming back to this area. It owns land, and it feels like it's gaining more and more prominence, and more members of the church are returning here. I mean, returning in the sense that, like in my case, I have ancestry on my dad's side that lived in Far West and Adamadiaman, and recently I found out I have one that lived here in Jackson County. And so I think a lot of their descendants are coming back. It's an amazing time. Last year, you had the dedication of the Elder Charles C. Rich cabin. This is the only surviving structure from far west. It's been reconstructed. It's not all original. Some of it is new materials, but I think like 60% of it is original. But it was dedicated last year, and it's a powerful symbol of the church's presence in this area and return, I think. They unveiled this statue of Elder Charles C. Rich. These are some of his descendants. This was an amazing event to participate in. The church it's like currently redoing the entrance to Far West. This is what it looked like before. And then just one day, randomly, or maybe not so randomly, I saw that they were redoing the entrance. They poured some new concrete and they got rid of the steps. So now it's like wheelchair accessible. You don't have to walk all the way around to the other entrance. And now, as of right now, it looks like this. I'm guessing that they're going to connect the fence to this, or maybe they'll put in a new fence, but it's not all the way done. But you have renovation going on right there. Last year, around September, the Independence Visitor Center roof was completely redone. It looks basically the same, but they repaired it. They replaced a lot of stuff. As you can see, you had all these building materials out in the parking lot. So that's something that recently took place. And then you have even Community of Christ. Again, I have my eye on them because they're selling things because they can't afford to hold on to a lot of what they have. The number of tithe payers in their church keeps going down, and I've seen a lot of things taking place with their temple as well as the auditorium. This was just ahead of their 2025 World Conference, the conference um, in which they ordained their first female prophet president of their church. Um, they fixed the steps, like they completely tore out the old steps over here that go to the World Plaza. And there was a lot of like work done on oh yeah, here you can see it still wasn't quite, or at least this part wasn't done. Not that these were steps, but you can see how they were recently doing some stuff here. There was scaffolding all around the auditorium for a long time. Like most of last year, they were working on the auditorium. And in a recent like financial statement or announcement, and it's on YouTube, on their YouTube channel, they talked about the fact that they do plan on keeping these properties, but they're going to invest $10 million in fixing them up, which they may actually be doing it to fix it up to sell, for all anybody knows. But at least outwardly, they're saying that they plan on keeping these buildings for the foreseeable future, and they're making all these repairs and improvements. I did a very interesting video where Elder Orson Pratt said that he said that the temple, like the main temple of the New Jerusalem in Independence, Missouri, would be domed. Like he seemed to indicate that it would be dome shape and would hold a lot of people. He said something like 15,000 or whatever. And it's interesting because that's a really good description of the auditorium. I don't know that that's what's going to happen, but it matches up really well with Elder Orson Pratt. The auditorium was constructed after Orson Pratt's time. But anyway, you have that. And then I just want to finish on this. Not that this has to do with improvements to the Kansas City area, Independence, or Missouri in general. But last year I saw something really rare. So this is CJ Online, A History of Twisters, Tornadoes in Missouri since 1950. And last year saw, from 1950 until last year, The tornado that's gotten the closest to the temple lot. So the temple lot is right. Wait, sorry, that's not. Okay, hold on. The temple lot is over here. Okay. Here's the Community of Christ temple. Here's the auditorium, this green area. This is the temple lot. And since 1950, the closest tornado to the temple lot is the one that happened last year. And it happened during their 2025 World Conference. It interrupted one of their meetings that they were having in the auditorium. It hit a building on Truman Road called Temple Engineering. It's a they produce like chemicals for the railroad industry, but the name of the company is Temple Engineering. And I was there to experience that too. We went for cover in the Independence Visitor Center. It said that there was a marginal risk for severe weather, but things developed really quickly and we couldn't get home in time to take cover. And so we ended up going to the Independence Visitor Center. But this is us driving in historic downtown Independence. But everyone ended up okay. So I take that as a sign of sorts that it has something to do with this area. And now, as I look at all these things that are taking place, how it seems like Missouri is just getting ready for something. I think that it is. I think that big things are on the horizon. It makes me very excited. So I'll do my best to try and document all this for you and keep on top of everything. If you see anything, let me know. I'm sure I didn't capture everything that's going on in Missouri, but there are big things. Big things are happening. A lot's changing. At the same time, I don't think it's coincidence. All right. Well, that's going to be it for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.